am Per Eriksson. So here we are in South Africa, just outside the little town of Stellenbosch in the Cape province. We are here to meet with Chef Michael Broughton at his restaurant, the Terroir. The unprestigious ambience and the dressed-down decor mixed well with the multi-award-winning Chef Michael's disciplined approach to food. Classic pairings and intense depth of flavors characterize the chalkboard menu of the simple dishes that are influenced what's in the season and, where it's possible, the use of local grown fresh produce. Let's meet Chef Michael and hear about his classic pairings and his depth of flavors. If you were to explain for somebody that's never been here about your profile when it comes to cooking, what would you say?
Our profile here when it comes to cooking is really, it's an overused word, but we try and keep it simple. We try and keep all the intricate pieces in the kitchen. We try and leave them there, and what we try and put on the plate is simple. But I would say the profile is classic French. With a little bit of a Cape twist thrown in, and it's contemporary. So we keep the French basics, and we just try with a little bit of contemporary, fashionable items. And we're not fashionable, but we'll keep abreast of what is fashionable and what customers expect.
Mm-hmm. I think it's really interesting what you say, the Cape twist, as you say. Could you explain what that is?
Well, we've got some at the moment. We've got some great purveyors or growers that are very close to us. We have in Cape Town, we have something called the boerkaap, where you would have a very Malay kind of influence on food. And that leads us to use a lot of spice, and not as a spice as an Eastern spice, but we will use, those spices in any way are French when you think about it. Mm-hmm. So we would have that sort of twist in our food. We've got great local butter. Now we don't have Brittany butter, but we have great suppliers with wonderful produce that are just up the road from us. We have inventive growers that are starting with microgreens and micro vegetables, not baby, but micro. And so I think, we're looking quite progressive in terms of what the producers are offering us here. So, and you won't really get that in many other places in South Africa. You may have it in small pockets, but we seem to have a good concentration down here of good growers that help us finish off the plate.
Mm-hmm. Tell me, what kind of produce do you find around in this area?
Well, we are fortunate. We have a number of committed growers in the area, close to us, in fact. And for an example, we were put in contact with a farmer up the road who has a huge amount of land which he's spent the last 5 years cultivating into organic. He's certified organic, and everything that comes from the farm is organic. So, and you won't find that, as I said before, in many areas in South Africa. So, we are working towards having one vegetarian plate that we're working on that would be completely organic. Mm-hmm. And for South Africa, that's a good development. It's a huge development. If we spoke a couple of years ago, that would not really have been such a possibility. So those growers are our best friends at the moment. So we're always trying to kind of just up our game somewhat every year. And in terms of produce, in the last 5 to 6 years, the Western Cape has become very progressive and very thoughtful in produce. Mm-hmm. So it helps us as chefs, finish off the plate. It helps us as chefs, present more colors, textures, flavors, and of course to be healthy. Mm-hmm. We also have a venison supplier that comes from more in the northern parts of South Africa, in Gauteng, and he's been supplying us springbok fillets, springbok loins for the past probably 14 years. And that's probably some of the finest springbok venison, springbok loin you would probably find in the country. And so it's important for me as a chef to have that produce to work for, because to work with, then I don't have to work so hard. I don't have to be a clever chef. I've got clever ingredients.
That's very good. I feel that there is an international trend for vegetarian dishes. Do you find that in South Africa as well?
The tendency to scale down the proportion of meat on the plate. I think that's there's definitely a move towards that. I think from a chef point of view, we would have to, in our box of ticks that we have to put on the plate to complete the plate, we as chefs are thinking a little bit more creatively around not just the meat, enrobed in a shiny, glossy sauce. We would have perhaps less meat, maybe 2 smaller cuts of the same animal, and a larger component of vegetable, something creamy, something green, something crunchy. There's definitely a move towards less meat, more vegetarian. I think in years to come, perhaps we would have to be forced to even scale down the meat, perhaps even a little more.
When it comes to plating, I think you're a true artist. Do you have a concept for every dish when it comes to plating?
I think when it comes to plating, there's a different concept, I think, for each plate. I think it all depends on what you would like to visualize, first of all. As we know, we eat with our eyes first. And different plates vary. And when it comes to an ingredient on a plate, there's always a main player. There's always the star of the plate. And I'm very conscious of making that the star of the plate. And around that, presenting as I call them, supporting actors, and the cast that goes around there. And I've always said it's as important what you leave off the plate as what you put on. So I think as my life moves forward and as I get a little bit older, I find my plating becoming less busy when I almost adapt the mantra of less is more. So the plate has to be visual. It has to have depth. It must taste of something. There must be various elements that excite and put forward the star of the show, so to speak. The visual, I always say, has to undersell, and the taste must oversell. So, if that makes sense, that's my understanding of plating. It's not always easy.
That's a very good expression.
It's not always easy. Yeah.
So, Michael, you are now one of the top restaurants in South Africa. You're internationally very well known. Where will you go from now?
I would love to do something locally. I would love to do 2 or 3 other concepts which I have brewing here. But Terroir is my foundation. It's where all the passion and the thinking and the ideas flow from. I think if I were to do something else, it would be a little simpler. I think in England it's very big to have gastropubs. I think that's a good idea. I quite like the idea of maybe scaling down somewhat, but still having my intrinsic thinking into the food. And in other words, I would still keep my DNA of thought in the food.
If you were to give a young person that wants to become a chef an advice, what would that be?
Put yourself alongside somebody who hopefully thinks like you. Put yourself alongside chefs that you know you're going to learn from, and don't skip around. Work your stage. If it's a year, you've got to imbibe what you're learning and move on, and imbibe what you're learning and move on. Don't skip around. Stay with something that's good. As long as it's good, stay there. Don't move if you're going backwards.